The yellow coffee mug felt warm against Audrey Fletcher's perfectly manicured fingers as she gazed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of her corner office. The city sprawled below her, a maze of buildings and morning traffic that seemed so small from the 30th floor. Her phone buzzed for the 5th time in 10 minutes. Another urgent message from Warren Caldwell, no doubt. But for once, she didn't immediately reach for it. Instead, she found herself staring at the family photo on her desk, the one taken last summer at Lake Tahoe. They all looked so happy there. When was the last time she had seen that relaxed smile on Nathan's face? Knock, knock! Jasmine's voice broke through her thoughts as her friend and marketing coordinator leaned against the doorframe. Earth to Audrey? The team's been waiting in the conference room for 7 minutes now. Audrey blinked, setting down her mug with a soft clink. Sorry, I got distracted. She gathered her tablet and presentation notes. Fourth quarter projections wait for no woman, right? As they walked briskly down the corridor, Jasmine studied her friend's face. You look tired. Everything okay at home? Fine, Audrey replied automatically, then paused. Actually, no. Nathan and I barely spoke this week. I missed Maya's parent-teacher conference yesterday because of the Patterson account emergency. He had to handle it alone. Again. He's a teacher. He understands school stuff better than you anyway, Jasmine offered with a shrug. Audrey stopped walking. That's exactly what I said to him last night. You know what he did? He just looked at me with this disappointment. Then he said, It's not about understanding the curriculum, Aud. It's about showing up. The conference room fell silent as they entered. Warren Caldwell, his silver hair perfectly coiffed as always, checked his watch pointedly. Nice of you to join us, Audrey. Now perhaps we can finally begin? The next 3 hours dissolved into slides, projections, and the occasional heated discussion about market strategy. Audrey presented flawlessly, as always. Her team had exceeded targets by 17% this quarter. The new enterprise management software suite she had shepherded through development was revolutionizing how their clients handled inventory. By any measure, she was excelling professionally. So why did success taste so hollow lately? It was nearly 7 o'clock in the evening when Audrey finally pulled into the driveway of their suburban 2-story home. The lights were on, warm and inviting against the October darkness. She sat in the car for a moment, composing herself, shedding the armor of corporate Audrey, and trying to remember how to be mom and wife Audrey. Inside, the house smelled of garlic and tomatoes. Nathan was at the stove, stirring a pot of what looked like his signature bolognese sauce while simultaneously helping Lucas with math homework. Maya sat at the kitchen island, headphones on, fingers flying over a laptop keyboard. Hey, Audrey said softly, setting her briefcase by the door. Mom's home. Lucas abandoned his homework and launched himself at her. At 9 years old, he still hadn't outgrown his enthusiastic hugs, and Audrey silently prayed he never would. She caught him mid-air, the weight of him solid and real in her arms. Nathan turned, wooden spoon in hand. His dark-rimmed glasses were slightly askew, and his button-down shirt had a small splash of tomato sauce near the collar. Just in time for dinner, he said, offering a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Maya looked up briefly, offering a teenager's obligatory acknowledgement. Hi, Mom. Sorry I'm late. The quarterly review meeting ran over. See, it was the truth, but it sounded like an excuse even to her own ears. No problem. I've got everything under control here. Nathan's voice held no judgment, which somehow made it worse. Lucas has a math quiz tomorrow. Maya's working on her history presentation. And I picked up your dry cleaning. It's hanging in the closet. You're a lifesaver, Audrey said, moving to kiss him on the cheek. Just doing my job. Again, that tight smile. Dinner was a whirlwind of Lucas's stories about the home run he'd hit in PE, Maya's complaints about her history teacher, and Nathan's gentle prodding to get both children to eat their vegetables. Audrey tried to participate, asking questions and making appropriate noises of interest, but she felt like she was watching the scene from behind glass. When had she become a visitor in her own family's daily life? After the dishes were cleared and the children had retreated to their rooms, Audrey found Nathan in the living room, grading papers with a red pen. He had a system: read each paper twice, make comments in the margins, final grade at the top with a short paragraph of feedback. She knew this routine as well as she knew her own morning makeup application. They had been married for 14 years, after all. "Nathan," she began, sitting beside him on the sofa, "about yesterday's conference." "It's fine," he cut in, not looking up from his grading. "Mrs. Hernandez understood. I recorded it for you. It's in an email." "It's not fine," Audrey insisted. "I know I've been distant lately." Now he did look up, setting the papers aside. Distant is one word for it. Gone might be more accurate. The words stung, but she couldn't deny their truth. "The rollout of the new software suite has been all-consuming. You know how important this project is for my career." "I do know," Nathan said, his voice softening. "Just like you know how important the kids' events are, or our anniversary dinner last month that you missed, or the fact that your son had a fever of 102 degrees 3 weeks ago and you were in Seattle for a presentation." "That's not fair," Audrey protested, though the guilt twisted in her stomach. "I called every 2 hours for updates." "Calling isn't the same as being here, Audrey." He sighed, running a hand through his disheveled brown hair. "Lucas asked me why Mommy doesn't love us enough to stay home when he's sick." The words hit like a physical blow. He said that. Kids are perceptive. They notice patterns. Nathan picked up his grading again, a clear signal that the conversation was over. "I've got 30 more essays to get through tonight. Parent conferences tomorrow." Audrey sat there, feeling dismissed. The irony wasn't lost on her. How many times had she ended conversations with Nathan because of work demands? Still, she tried one more time. "I love you, all of you. You know that, right?" Nathan's expression softened just a fraction. "We know. We just miss you being present when you're here, not just physically in the room while your mind is still at the office." Later that night, after Nathan had fallen asleep, Audrey lay awake staring at the ceiling. Her husband's even breathing beside her should have been comforting, but instead it underscored her restlessness. She reached for her phone, intending to check emails, then stopped herself. This was exactly what Nathan had been talking about. Instead, she opened the family calendar app they shared. Nathan's schedule was meticulously detailed. Lucas's baseball practice, Maya's clarinet lesson, dental appointments, school events, meal plans, even reminders to change the air filters in the house. Her own calendar, by contrast, was a sea of work commitments with the occasional family dinner slot that often got rescheduled. When had they fallen into these roles so completely? It hadn't always been this way. When they first married, they had shared responsibilities more evenly. Nathan had been working on his master's thesis. She had been climbing the corporate ladder. Somewhere along the way, as her career accelerated and his settled into the steady rhythm of academia, they had slipped into a pattern that now seemed immutable. The next morning arrived with gray skies and a light drizzle. Audrey woke to an empty bed and the sounds of the household already in motion downstairs. She checked her phone, 6:37 in the morning, and felt a pang of guilt. Even on this dreary Friday, Nathan had let her sleep in while he handled the morning routine. By the time she made it to the kitchen, the children were finishing breakfast. Nathan, dressed for school in a tweed jacket with leather elbow patches that should have looked pretentious, but somehow suited him perfectly, was packing lunches with assembly line efficiency. "Morning, sleeping beauty," he said, glancing up. There was warmth in his voice today. The tension from last night apparently set aside. That was Nathan. He rarely stayed angry for long. "Coffee's fresh." "Ooh, you're a saint," she murmured, pouring herself a cup. "Kids, do you have everything you need for school?" Maya rolled her eyes in that particular way only 13-year-old girls had perfected. "Dad already checked, Mom. Like he does every morning." "Right. Of course." Audrey felt that pang again, the awareness of her peripheral role in these daily routines. "Mom, can you come to my baseball game tomorrow?" Lucas asked, milk mustache adorning his upper lip. It's the semifinals. I'll try, buddy. I might have to. She'll be there, Nathan interrupted, giving her a pointed look. Right, Audrey? Saturday, 10 in the morning. It's been on the calendar for 3 weeks. Put on the spot. Audrey nodded. Yes, absolutely. I wouldn't miss it. She would have to reschedule her conference call with the Tokyo team, but Lucas's hopeful expression made the decision easy. The morning whirlwind continued. Backpacks gathered, permission slips signed, kisses exchanged, and then Nathan was herding the children toward the door. Dinner's prepped in the fridge, he called over his shoulder. Just needs to go in the oven at 5:30 if I'm running late with parent conferences. And then she was alone in the suddenly silent house, coffee in hand, wondering when exactly her husband had become so indispensable to their family's functioning. And she so optional. At work, the day progressed with its usual frenetic energy. 2 client calls, a strategy session with her development team, and lunch with Warren to discuss her department's budget for the coming year. It was during this lunch that Warren casually dropped the bombshell. The board is very impressed with your work on the Enterprise Suite, he said, cutting into his steak. So impressed that we're considering you to head up the new regional office in Chicago. Audrey nearly choked on her water. Chicago? That's unexpected. Warren looked pleased with himself. It would mean a significant promotion. Vice President of Product Development for the entire Midwest region. Substantial salary increase, stock options, the works. When would this happen? She asked, mind racing. We'd want you to start setting things up by January. Full relocation by March. Warren continued eating, as if he hadn't just upended her entire life. Of course, you'll want to discuss it with your husband. Teachers can find jobs anywhere, though, right? And kids are adaptable. Are they? Audrey wondered. Is Nathan? Am I asking them to uproot their lives again for my career? The rest of the day passed in a blur. By 5 o'clock, rain was coming down in sheets, matching Audrey's turbulent thoughts. She should have been elated about the opportunity. Instead, she felt a growing unease. Even contemplating telling Nathan about the potential move made her stomach clench. She was halfway home when her phone rang through the car's speaker system. Nathan's name flashed on the dashboard display. Hey, she answered, trying to sound normal. Audrey. His voice was tight with stress. I need a huge favor. Mrs. Whitman had a family emergency, and Dennis asked if I could cover her evening parent conferences since I'm already here. It could run until 9. Oh, she said, processing this change of plans. I know it's last minute, but could you handle dinner and bedtime for the kids? Lucas has homework he'll need help with, and Maya has that history presentation she's stressing about. Of course, Audrey said automatically, though a flutter of panic rose in her chest. She rarely handled the evening routine alone these days. I'll figure it out. You're a lifesaver. Nathan echoed her words from the night before, the irony probably not lost on him either. Everything for dinner is ready to go, just needs to be heated. I've left notes on the counter about Lucas's homework. After they hung up, Audrey gripped the steering wheel tighter. She could run a team of 15 people, manage multi-million-dollar projects, and give presentations to rooms full of executives. But the thought of handling one evening of parenting solo filled her with anxiety. What did that say about her as a mother? As she pulled into their driveway, the Chicago offer still swirling in her mind, Audrey wondered how their family had become so unbalanced and whether it was too late to find equilibrium again. Maybe, she whispered to herself as she turned off the engine, rain drumming on the roof of her car. It's time to see things from Nathan's perspective. The house was unusually quiet when Audrey stepped inside, shaking raindrops from her coat. No television cartoons, no music from Maya's room, no sounds of Nathan's cooking preparations. For a moment, she wondered if the children had gone somewhere, but then she heard the faint sound of Lucas's voice coming from upstairs. I told you! I don't understand it, he was saying, frustration evident even from a distance. Audrey hung her coat and climbed the stairs. She found Lucas sitting at his desk, math workbook open, tears of frustration threatening to spill. Maya was beside him, attempting to explain a concept about fractions. "Hey, you two," Audrey said, leaning against the doorframe. "I'm home." Lucas looked up, relief washing over his face. "Mom, Dad said he's going to be late. Maya's trying to help me with math, but she keeps using big words." "I'm using the exact same words Dad does," Maya defended herself, folding her arms. "He just doesn't listen." Audrey entered the room fully, setting her briefcase down. "Why don't I take a look?" She pulled up a chair beside Lucas, examining the worksheet on equivalent fractions. It had been years since she'd done elementary school math, but the concepts came back quickly. "Okay, so we're trying to find fractions that have the same value, but different numbers, right?" Lucas nodded uncertainly. Audrey looked around, spotting a chocolate bar on his desk. "Perfect. Can I use this?" She broke the chocolate into sections. "See, if I break this into 12 pieces and give you 6 pieces, how much of the chocolate do you have?" "Half," Lucas answered. "Right. And if I had broken it into 4 pieces and given you 2, how much would you have?" "Still half," Lucas said, understanding dawning. "Exactly. Different numbers, same amount. That's equivalent fractions." Lucas's face brightened. "Oh, like when Dad cuts the pizza in 8 slices instead of 6, but I still get 1/3 of it? That's exactly it." Audrey felt a small surge of triumph at the connection forming in her son's mind. "Now, try those problems again." As Lucas bent over his work with renewed confidence, Maya caught Audrey's eye, giving her a small nod of approval. "I'm going to work on my presentation," she said, heading for the door. "It's about women in the workforce during World War II. "Doof, need any help?" Audrey offered, surprising herself. Maya paused, considering. "Actually, maybe. I'm having trouble finding good quotes from primary sources. I'll come by your room in 20 minutes, after I get dinner started," Audrey promised. Maya's smile, a rare gift from her increasingly independent teenager, felt like unexpected sunshine. Downstairs, Audrey found Nathan's note on the kitchen counter. His handwriting was neat and methodical, detailing instructions for heating the casserole, reminders about Lucas's homework, and a note that Maya seemed anxious about her presentation. At the bottom, almost as an afterthought, "Wine in the fridge if you need it. Love you." The casserole was indeed perfectly prepped, just waiting to be heated. Audrey followed Nathan's instructions to the letter, then opened her laptop at the kitchen table, intending to quickly check emails while the food warmed. Warren had already sent a follow-up about the Chicago position, requesting her initial thoughts by Monday. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, ready to craft a non-committal but positive response, when she heard Maya calling from upstairs. "Mom, didn't you say you'd help with my presentation?" Audrey checked the time. She'd been absorbed in emails for 25 minutes. "Coming," she called back, closing her laptop. The emails could wait. In Maya's room, they sat side by side on the bed, looking at her laptop screen filled with images of women working in factories during the 1940s. Audrey helped her find first-hand accounts from women who had worked on assembly lines, discovering in the process that her daughter had inherited Nathan's meticulous research skills, but perhaps her own passion for telling human stories behind historical facts. "This is actually pretty cool," Maya admitted after they'd found several compelling quotes. "These women totally changed how people thought about what women could do." Audrey felt a surge of connection with her daughter. They certainly did. They stepped into roles that no one thought they could handle, and they excelled. "Like you, Mom," Maya said, looking at her directly. "Dad says you're breaking glass ceilings or something." The unexpected comparison caught Audrey off guard. "Your dad says that?" Maya nodded. "He talks about your work a lot, actually. He's always telling us how important what you do is." Something warm and uncomfortable twisted in Audrey's chest. While she had been feeling disconnected from her family, Nathan had apparently been making sure their children understood and respected her work. The least she could do was return that consideration. The timer for the casserole chimed, breaking the moment. "Let's eat," Audrey said, squeezing Maya's shoulder. "You can tell me more about your presentation over dinner." The meal was surprisingly pleasant, without the usual rush to other activities. Lucas, emboldened by his math breakthrough, chattered about his upcoming baseball game. Maya, usually monosyllabic at best, actually engaged in conversation about her research. Audrey found herself fully present, not checking her phone or mentally reviewing work projects. The change felt good. After dinner, she supervised Lucas's shower, while Maya loaded the dishwasher without being asked. By the time Nathan texted that he was finally on his way home, both children were in bed. Lucas reading his assigned book, Maya on her phone, but with her presentation materials neatly organized for the next day. Audrey poured 2 glasses of wine and sat at the kitchen island, waiting. When Nathan finally walked through the door at 9:30, looking exhausted, she handed him a glass wordlessly. "You're a saint," he said, echoing their morning exchange as he accepted it gratefully. "How did it go?" "Surprisingly well," she admitted. Lucas had a breakthrough with equivalent fractions, and Maya and I found some great primary sources for her presentation. They're both in bed. Nathan looked genuinely pleased, though a hint of surprise flickered across his features. "That's fantastic. Thank you." He sat beside her at the island, loosening his tie. Parent conferences were a nightmare. Everyone wants to know why their precious genius isn't getting straight A's. Audrey laughed softly. "Sounds like my quarterly review meetings with the board." They sat in companionable silence for a moment, sipping their wine. It felt like the most relaxed moment they'd shared in weeks. "Nathan," Audrey began carefully, "I've been thinking about our conversation last night." He tensed, almost imperceptibly. "Okay, you're right. I've been physically present, but mentally absent too often lately." She traced the rim of her wineglass. "I miss us, the way we used to be partners in everything." Nathan's expression softened. "I miss that too. What would you think about trying an experiment?" The idea had been forming in her mind all evening, taking shape as she'd stepped into Nathan's role for just a few hours. "What kind of experiment?" he asked, curiosity evident in his voice. "A role reversal. For 1 week." Audrey turned to face him fully. "You take on my responsibilities, and I take on yours." Nathan's eyebrows shot up. "You can't be serious." "I am. Completely serious." She leaned forward. "You handle my work meetings and presentations. Warren would allow it as a professional development exercise, and I'll take over the household, the kids' schedules, your classes." "Audrey, that's insane. I can't just walk into your corporate job. I don't know the first thing about enterprise software or product management, and until tonight, I wasn't sure I remembered how to help with 4th grade math or make dinner without burning something," she countered. "But I did it. You could learn the basics of my presentations. I'd prepare you, of course, and I could get emergency lesson plans for your classes." Nathan shook his head, but she could see he was considering it. "Why? What would be the point? To understand each other better, to appreciate what the other does, to find our balance again." Audrey reached for his hand. "Nathan, I've been offered a promotion. A big one." His eyes widened. "That's wonderful. Congratulations." "It would mean relocating to Chicago." The silence that followed was heavy with implication. Nathan withdrew his hand slowly. "I see. I haven't said yes," Audrey hastened to add. "I haven't said anything yet, but before we even discuss it, I want us to really understand each other's worlds, what we'd be asking of each other with any major change." Nathan took another sip of wine, then set the glass down carefully. 1 week, he said finally. "Starting when?" "Monday," Audrey suggested, her heart racing at his tentative acceptance. "We have the weekend to prepare each other." "The kids will think we've lost our minds," Nathan said, a reluctant smile tugging at his lips. "Maybe we have, but I think we need this." Audrey felt something shifting between them, the first crack in the walls that had been building, invisibly, for months, or perhaps years. "One condition," Nathan said, his expression turning serious again. "We commit fully. No backing out halfway through, even when it gets hard. Especially when it gets hard. We see this through for the entire week. Agreed, Audrey said firmly, extending her hand to shake on it. Instead of shaking her hand, Nathan pulled her into a kiss. Brief, but tender. The kind they used to exchange readily before life and responsibilities had created distance. When he pulled away, his eyes held a mix of trepidation and something else. Perhaps hope. You know, he said with a small smile, if nothing else, this should be entertaining. Audrey laughed, feeling lighter than she had in months. Just wait until you meet Warren on a bad day. The weekend passed in a flurry of preparation. They spent Saturday morning at Lucas's baseball game, cheering as he hit a double that helped his team advance to the finals. In the afternoon, they sat at the kitchen table with notebooks and laptops, creating detailed guides to their respective lives. Nathan showed Audrey his lesson plans for the coming week. 10th grade American literature focused on The Great Gatsby, 12th grade advanced placement poetry analysis, and a creative writing elective. She took careful notes on the grading rubrics, classroom management techniques, and the personalities of both students and fellow teachers she should be aware of. In return, Audrey walked Nathan through her upcoming meetings, the status of ongoing projects, and key client relationships. She created simplified briefing documents and talking points for presentations, focusing on the big picture strategies rather than technical details. If you get stuck, just say you want to hear the team's thoughts before making a decision, she advised. It makes you look collaborative rather than unprepared. Corporate politics is a whole other language, Nathan marveled, reviewing her department org chart. How do you keep track of all these alliances and rivalries? The same way you keep track of which parents are divorced, which students have accommodations, and which faculty members are feuding over parking spaces, Audrey replied with a smile. Sunday evening found them in their bedroom, sorting through clothes. Audrey had pulled out her most conservative business attire for Nathan, suits that could be made masculine with the right accessories. I can't believe I'm about to wear heels to work, Nathan joked, holding up a pair of her lower-heeled pumps against his foot. Don't be ridiculous, Audrey laughed. Wear your Oxford shoes. No one expects you to become a woman, just to do my job. For her part, Audrey was examining Nathan's collection of tweed jackets and button-downs with elbow patches. Do all male teachers dress like they've just stepped out of Dead Poets Society? She teased. It creates an aura of scholarly authority, he replied with mock seriousness. As they prepared for bed, the reality of what they were about to undertake began to sink in. Are we crazy for doing this? Audrey asked, sitting on the edge of the mattress. Nathan sat beside her, taking her hand. Probably. But sometimes crazy is exactly what a relationship needs. He squeezed her fingers. Whatever happens this week, I love you. Remember that when you're facing my first period class on Monday morning? They can smell fear. Audrey laughed, leaning against his shoulder. And you remember that when Jasmine starts grilling you about Warren's latest management philosophy. She's testing your knowledge, not making small talk. They fell asleep that night, curled closer together than they had been in months, the anticipation of their unusual experiment creating a strange new intimacy between them. Monday morning arrived with alarm clocks set for 5:30. Earlier than Audrey usually rose, but standard for Nathan. She blinked awake to find him already up, standing before the mirror adjusting the jacket of her charcoal gray suit. How do I look? He asked, turning to face her. Professional enough? Seeing her husband in her clothes was oddly endearing. The suit, tailored for her frame, strained slightly at his broader shoulders, but the overall effect was surprisingly dignified. You look better in that suit than I do, she said honestly. Nathan snorted. Flattery will get you nowhere. Get up. You need to be at school by 7:15 to prep for first period. The morning routine was a whirlwind of activity. Audrey, dressed in Nathan's khakis and a button-down shirt, made breakfast following his detailed instructions while he prepared lunches for the children. Lucas and Maya stumbled downstairs, still half asleep, and stopped in their tracks when they saw their parents. "Why is Dad wearing Mom's clothes?" Lucas asked, rubbing his eyes as if the scene might change. "And why is Mom making breakfast?" Maya added suspiciously. Nathan and Audrey exchanged glances. "We're trying an experiment," Audrey explained. "For this week, Dad is going to do Mom's job, and I'm going to do Dad's job." Lucas looked fascinated. "So Dad's going to be a boss lady? And you're going to be a teacher?" "Exactly," Nathan said, handing him his lunch bag. "And we need you both to help us by being patient while we figure things out." Maya narrowed her eyes. "Is this because you guys are fighting?" "No, sweetheart," Audrey assured her. "It's because we want to understand each other better. Sometimes, to appreciate what someone else does, you need to walk in their shoes. Literally, in Dad's case." This earned a reluctant smile from Maya. "The kids at school are going to freak when Mom shows up instead of Dad." "They've been warned," Nathan said. "I emailed everyone yesterday. The principal thinks it's an innovative professional development exercise." After breakfast, they gathered their respective briefcases and prepared to part ways. Nathan to the corporate tower downtown, Audrey to the high school across town. Standing in the driveway, they paused for a moment, the magnitude of the day ahead suddenly overwhelming. "Good luck," Audrey said softly, straightening Nathan's tie. "Remember, the Miller proposal meeting is at 10. All the talking points are in the blue folder." "Good luck to you too," Nathan replied, handing her a stack of graded papers. "First period tends to be sleepy. The coffee in the teacher's lounge is terrible, but it's better than nothing." They shared a brief kiss, watched by their children from the front porch, then got into their respective cars. Nathan into Audrey's sleek sedan, Audrey into Nathan's practical hybrid. As she adjusted his seat and mirrors, Audrey caught a glimpse of her husband's face in his car's rearview mirror. He looked terrified but determined. "1 week," she whispered to herself as she backed out of the driveway. How hard could it be? The high school parking lot was already half full when Audrey arrived. She parked in the space labeled N. Fletcher, English Department, and gathered Nathan's leather satchel, feeling like an imposter. The school building loomed ahead, red brick and institutional. Nothing like the sleek glass tower where she normally spent her days. A few students milled about the entrance, some casting curious glances her way as she approached. One girl with purple-tipped hair actually did a double-take, then whispered to her friend. News of the experiment had clearly spread among the student body. The main office was easy to find, and the secretary, a woman in her 60s with a nameplate reading Mrs. Greenwood, looked up as Audrey entered. "You must be Mrs. Fletcher," she said, with undisguised curiosity. "Nathan called me yesterday to explain your situation. Your classroom is 103, same as his. I've made a temporary ID badge." She handed over a plastic-encased card with Audrey's name and photo, clearly taken from the school's website where Nathan had mentioned her in his faculty biography. "Thank you," Audrey said, clipping the badge to her shirt. "Any advice before I head in?" Mrs. Greenwood's expression softened. "The kids will test you, especially the sophomores. Don't take it personally. And Dennis Whitman, the department head, he'll probably stop by. He's curious about this whole arrangement." Armed with this warning, Audrey made her way through hallways that smelled of floor polish and adolescence. The classroom, Nathan's domain, was neat and welcoming. Posters of famous authors lined the walls, alongside student work displayed with obvious pride. His desk was meticulously organized, lesson materials for the day already arranged in chronological order. Audrey ran her fingers along the spines of books on his shelf. Classics, contemporary literature, poetry collections, many with bookmarks and sticky notes protruding from their pages. Each represented hours of Nathan's preparation, his passion for literature evident in the well-worn state of his favorites. She was still exploring when the first students began to filter in. They regarded her with naked curiosity, some whispering behind their hands. A tall boy with a basketball jersey took his seat in the back corner, calling out, "Where's Mr. Fletcher? Did he finally escape?" Mr. Fletcher and I are trading places for the week, Audrey replied, attempting to channel Nathan's calm classroom presence. I'm Mrs. Fletcher, and you are? Jason, the boy replied, looking bemused. More students arrived, filling the classroom with an energy that was entirely different from her corporate meetings. By the time the bell rang, 27 sophomores were staring at her expectantly. Audrey took a deep breath and picked up Nathan's detailed lesson plan. Good morning, everyone. As you can see, I'm not Mr. Fletcher. For this week, we're conducting an experiment where I take over his classes while he handles my corporate job. She wrote her name on the whiteboard. We're picking up with Chapter 7 of The Great Gatsby, according to Mr. Fletcher's notes. A girl in the front row, Maya's friend Zoe, Audrey realized, raised her hand. So, are you actually going to teach us, or is this a free week? The question provoked snickers around the room. Audrey smiled, recognizing the test for what it was. I'll be teaching according to Mr. Fletcher's lesson plans. He's graded your essays from last week, and I believe they'll factor into your semester grade. So unless you all have perfect scores already, I suggest we make this week count. Teet! This earned a few reluctant nods of acknowledgement. Audrey opened the novel to the marked page, grateful that Nathan had included discussion questions and key points to cover. Let's talk about Gatsby's relationship with Daisy and how it represents the American dream. By some miracle, she made it through the first period without disaster. The students, while clearly testing boundaries, seemed to accept her presence after the initial novelty wore off. The subsequent periods followed a similar pattern, initial skepticism giving way to cautious engagement. By lunchtime, Audrey was mentally exhausted in a way completely different from her corporate fatigue. She found the teacher's lounge, where several faculty members were eating lunch. A man around Nathan's age approached as she entered. "You must be the famous Audrey," he said, extending his hand. "Dennis Whitman. Nathan's told us so much about you over the years, but we never expected to have you join the faculty." "Only temporarily," Audrey clarified, shaking his hand. "It's an educational experiment." Dennis gestured to an empty chair at his table. "Join us. We're all dying to know how Nathan's corporate adventure is going." Audrey checked her phone for the first time since arriving at school. No missed calls or urgent texts from Nathan, which she hoped was a good sign. "No disasters reported yet," she said, taking the offered seat. Though his first big meeting started about an hour ago, the teachers were surprisingly welcoming, asking questions about her job, and offering amusing stories about Nathan's teaching style. Audrey found herself relaxing for the first time that day, charmed by the camaraderie that seemed to exist among the faculty. It was a different kind of professional relationship than the often competitive atmosphere of her corporate world. "So, what do you think of teaching so far?" asked a young woman who had introduced herself as the chemistry teacher. "Ready to switch careers?" Audrey laughed. "Ask me at the end of the week, but I have to say I have a whole new appreciation for what Nathan does every day. Keeping 27 teenagers engaged with Fitzgerald is more challenging than I expected." "Wait until 7th period," Dennis warned with a grin. "The creative writing elective. Those kids are brilliant, but intense." Dennis's warning proved accurate. The creative writing students arrived with an energy that made the morning classes seem tame by comparison. These were seniors, most bound for college, who had chosen the elective because of a genuine passion for writing. They regarded Audrey with open skepticism. "Mr. Fletcher said we'd be workshopping our short stories today," announced a girl with intense eyes and a notebook covered in literary quotes. "Will you be able to give us useful feedback, or should we just critique each other?" The challenge was clear. Audrey considered her response carefully. "While I'm not a creative writing teacher, I am someone who reads extensively. I also manage a team of people who write for a living. Different context, but the principles of clear communication are universal. So yes, I'll give feedback, and you can decide if it's useful." This seemed to satisfy the students, who proceeded to distribute copies of their stories. For the next hour, Audrey found herself immersed in teenage fiction ranging from dystopian science fiction to painfully autobiographical coming-of-age narratives. She drew on her business experience, offering specific praise and constructive criticism, treating each young author with the same professional respect she would show her team members. By the time the final bell rang, Audrey's voice was hoarse, and her brain felt scrambled from the constant shifting between literary analysis, grammar correction, and teenage crowd control. As the last students filed out, Dennis appeared in the doorway. "You survived," he observed with a smile. "Nathan called the office. He said to tell you he's also survived so far, though someone named Warren apparently made him sweat through a budget review." Audrey winced. "Warren can be intense. I should call him." "Before you do," Dennis said, entering the room fully, "I wanted to say that you did well today. The students were talking about you between classes. Generally positive things, which is high praise from teenagers." "Thank you," Audrey said, genuinely touched. "It was illuminating." "Nathan's a gifted teacher," Dennis continued, leaning against a desk. "One of our best, but even he comes home exhausted some days. Teaching isn't just about knowing the material, it's emotional labor. You're not just managing information, you're managing people at their most formative and volatile stage." Audrey nodded, a new understanding dawning. "I'm beginning to see that." After Dennis left, she gathered the essays she needed to grade and the lesson plans for tomorrow, stuffing them into Nathan's satchel. The building was quieting as she made her way to the parking lot, most students and teachers already gone. The emptiness reminded her of her office tower late at night, when she often stayed behind after others had left. Both spaces had a similar liminal quality when vacant, places usually defined by human activity, suddenly hollow and expectant. Her phone rang as she reached the car. Nathan's face appeared on the screen. "How bad was it?" she asked by way of greeting. His laugh came through the speaker. "Well, I didn't get fired, so there's that. Warren is terrifying, by the way. How do you work with him every day?" "Years of practice," Audrey replied, smiling despite herself. "How did the Miller proposal go?" "I think, good. Jasmine saved me a few times when I got technical details wrong, but your talking points worked. They seemed impressed with the fresh perspective I brought to the discussion." "And the team? How did they react to you?" A pause. "Mixed. Some were clearly amused, others skeptical. A few seemed to appreciate the experiment. Your assistant, Mark, has been a godsend. Reminds me a bit of Mrs. Greenwood, actually. Knows everything about everyone and isn't afraid to steer me in the right direction. And how about you? How are you feeling?" Another pause. "Honestly? Exhausted, but in a completely different way than teaching exhausts me. It's like my brain is tired rather than my whole being." Nathan's voice softened. "I kept thinking about how you do this every day, making decisions that affect so many people, with so much money and reputation at stake. It's a lot of pressure, Audrey." Something warm unfurled in her chest at his words. "Teaching is its own kind of pressure," she admitted. 27 pairs of eyes staring at you, waiting for you to engage them with The Great Gatsby? That's not for the faint of heart." They shared a laugh, the sound bridging the miles between them. "I should warn you," Nathan said. "Lucas has a math quiz tomorrow that he'll need help studying for tonight. The worksheet is in his folder, and you should prepare for the Asia-Pacific conference call at 11 tomorrow." Audrey countered. "The briefing materials are in the red folder. Time zones are tricky. It'll be midnight in Tokyo." "This experiment is getting very real," Nathan observed. "See you at home?" "I'll be there soon," Audrey promised. "Need to stop by the grocery store first. According to your meal plan, we're having chicken stir-fry tonight." After hanging up, Audrey sat in the car for a moment, reflecting on the day. She had successfully navigated Nathan's professional world, different from hers, but no less complex or demanding. The respect she had always felt for him had deepened, colored now by first-hand experience. The grocery store was crowded with after-work shoppers. Audrey navigated the aisles with Nathan's list in hand, realizing how little attention she normally paid to this aspect of their household management. She knew, abstractly, that food appeared in their refrigerator and pantry. Meals materialized on the table, but the actual labor involved had been largely invisible to her. As she compared prices on chicken breasts, an elderly woman beside her smiled. "First time shopping? You look a bit lost, dear." Audrey laughed. "Is it that obvious? My husband usually does the shopping, but we're switching roles this week." The woman nodded approvingly. "My Harold never set foot in a grocery store in 47 years of marriage. Times have changed for the better, I'd say." Back in the car, groceries secured in the trunk, Audrey called Maya to check in. "How was school? Everything okay at home?" It's weird having Dad's substitute teacher be, like, actually Dad's substitute, Maya replied. "Lucas and I just got home. He's freaking out about his math quiz tomorrow. Tell him not to worry. I'll help him study when I get there," Audrey said, pulling out of the parking lot. "I'm stopping for groceries, then heading home." "You're cooking tonight?" Maya sounded skeptical. "Maybe we should order pizza." "Very funny. I'll have you know I successfully taught 5 English classes today. I think I can handle a stir-fry." When Audrey finally arrived home, she found Lucas at the kitchen table, math workbook open before him, expression anxious. "Mom, I don't understand these fraction word problems at all." Audrey set the grocery bags on the counter and took a seat beside him. "Let me see." The problems involved calculating portions of measurements. If 3/4 of a recipe calls for 2/3 cup of flour, how much flour is needed for the whole recipe? "Okay," she said, pulling out a piece of paper. "Let's draw this out, step by step." She broke down the problem visually, showing how to convert the fractions into a format Lucas could understand. His confusion gradually cleared as she worked through several examples with him. "This is actually making sense now," he admitted, after successfully solving a problem on his own. "Can we practice more after dinner?" "Absolutely," Audrey promised, ruffling his hair as she stood up to unpack the groceries. Maya appeared in the doorway, observing the scene. "Dad called. He said he's stopping to pick up his dry cleaning, then he'll be home. Perfect timing. Want to help me with dinner?" Audrey asked, hoping to extend the connection she'd begun forming with her daughter. Maya hesitated, then shrugged. "Sure, I guess. But I'm not eating it if it's bad." Together, they chopped vegetables and prepared the stir-fry sauce according to Nathan's recipe. Audrey was surprised by how familiar Maya was with the kitchen routines. Clearly, Nathan had involved the children in meal preparation more than she'd realized. "You're actually pretty good at this," Audrey observed, as Maya expertly minced garlic. "Dad's been teaching me since I was, like, 10, Maya replied, a hint of pride in her voice. "He says everyone should know how to feed themselves properly." "Your dad is a wise man," Audrey said, feeling a renewed appreciation for her husband's parenting philosophy. The front door opened just as they were finishing, and Nathan appeared, looking professionally disheveled in her suit. His tie loosened, hair slightly mussed from running his hands through it, a habit he fell into when stressed. "Something smells good," he said, setting down his briefcase and the dry cleaning. His eyes widened slightly as he took in the domestic scene, Audrey and Maya cooking together, Lucas working at the table. "This is not what I expected to come home to." "Good different or bad different?" Audrey asked, suddenly self-conscious. "Good," Nathan said definitively, smiling at her. "Definitely good." Over dinner, they exchanged stories from their respective days, Nathan describing his attempts to navigate corporate politics, Audrey sharing anecdotes about memorable students. The children listened with fascination, occasionally interjecting with their own observations about the strangeness of the situation. "So, this is just for 1 week, right?" Lucas asked as they cleared the dishes. "Because I kind of like having Mom help with math. She explains it differently than Dad." "Just 1 week," Nathan confirmed, glancing at Audrey. "Unless we decide otherwise." After the children went upstairs to finish homework, Audrey and Nathan settled at the kitchen table with their respective grading and presentation preparation. The role reversal continued in comfortable silence, broken occasionally by questions or comments. "Your student Eliza has an incredible voice in her writing," Audrey said, looking up from a creative writing submission. "Have you encouraged her to submit to literary magazines? This piece about her grandmother is publication-worthy." Nathan nodded. "She's extraordinarily talented. I've been mentoring her on college applications for creative writing programs." He tapped the presentation slides on his laptop. "And your colleague Peterson seems determined to undermine your proposal for the new client onboarding system. Is he always so passive-aggressive in meetings?" "Always," Audrey confirmed. "Office politics at its finest. Keep Jasmine on your side. She knows how to handle him." They worked side by side until nearly midnight, the kitchen table becoming a shared space, bridging their normally separate professional worlds. As they finally packed up to head to bed, Nathan paused, looking at Audrey thoughtfully. "Today was eye-opening," he said. "I knew intellectually what you did, but experiencing it firsthand is different. The pace, the stakes, the constant need to be 3 steps ahead. It's impressive, Audrey." She smiled, touched by his understanding. "I feel the same way about your job. Teaching isn't just delivering information. It's performing, connecting, mentoring, all simultaneously. I had no idea how mentally and emotionally demanding it is." She reached for his hand across the table. "Thank you for suggesting this experiment." "Actually, you suggested it," Nathan reminded her, squeezing her fingers. "Did I? It feels like your idea now." Audrey stood, tugging him up with her. "Come on, Professor Fletcher. We both have early mornings tomorrow." As they climbed the stairs together, Audrey felt a subtle shift in their relationship, a new thread of mutual respect weaving through the familiar fabric of their marriage. Day 1 of their experiment had proven illuminating in ways she hadn't anticipated. She wondered what the remaining 6 days would reveal. In bed that night, with Nathan's steady breathing beside her, Audrey found herself thinking about the Chicago offer. The promotion still glittered enticingly in her mind, but now it was complicated by a clearer understanding of what such a move would mean for Nathan's career, for the children's stability. Her perspective was already changing, the costs and benefits shifting in her mental calculation. Perhaps that was the point of this experiment, she realized as sleep began to claim her. Not just to walk in each other's shoes, but to see their shared life from both perspectives simultaneously. To make decisions not just as individuals with separate careers, but as true partners with intertwined fates. The remaining question, one she wasn't yet ready to answer, was whether that partnership could withstand the strain of her ambition, or if she would need to make choices that prioritized their family's balance over her professional advancement. And if so, could she make peace with that choice? These thoughts followed her into dreams where she stood at a crossroads, Chicago's skyline visible in one direction, her family home in the other, while Nathan watched silently, waiting for her decision. Tuesday morning arrived with the now familiar early alarm. Audrey woke feeling more prepared for her day in the classroom, having spent the evening reviewing Nathan's lesson plans and grading papers. Beside her, Nathan was already awake, staring at the ceiling. "Conference call anxiety?" she asked, propping herself up on one elbow. He nodded. "The Asia-Pacific team intimidates me even in normal circumstances. Now I have to pretend I understand their market projections and product localization needs." Audrey squeezed his shoulder reassuringly. "Remember what I told you. They mostly want validation for their ideas. Ask questions, make them feel heard, then redirect to the points in my briefing notes. You'll be fine." Their morning routine was smoother than the previous day, the novelty of their switched roles already evolving into something resembling normalcy. Lucas approached Audrey at breakfast, math workbook in hand. "Can we go over one more problem before school?" he asked anxiously. Audrey checked the time. They had 15 minutes before they needed to leave. "Absolutely. Show me what's troubling you." Nathan watched them work together, a small smile playing at his lips as he packed lunches. When Audrey successfully guided Lucas through a particularly tricky word problem, the boy's face lit up with understanding and pride. "You're really good at explaining this stuff, Mom," Lucas said, closing his workbook. "She's always been good at breaking down complex problems," Nathan remarked. "It's what makes her so successful at work." The casual compliment caught Audrey by surprise. Had Nathan always seen and appreciated her skills this way? Had she simply failed to notice his recognition? The drive to school felt less daunting than it had yesterday. Audrey had a better sense of what to expect, and the students would likely be less focused on the novelty of her presence. In the parking lot, she spotted Dennis waving to her from the entrance. "Day 2, he said as she approached. "Ready for the sophomore vocabulary quiz?" Audrey groaned dramatically. "I'd forgotten about that. Does your department have some unspoken rule about making Tuesdays especially challenging?" Dennis laughed. "Wait until Thursday. Senior thesis draft reviews." Inside her classroom, she had begun to think of it that way, at least temporarily. Audrey prepared for the day with more confidence than she'd felt yesterday. She understood now why Nathan arrived so early. The quiet preparation time was essential for mental organization. The morning periods progressed relatively smoothly. The vocabulary quiz took less time than anticipated, allowing Audrey to introduce the next section of The Great Gatsby ahead of schedule. She found herself genuinely enjoying the discussion that followed, drawing connections between the novel's exploration of American dream mythology and modern social mobility challenges. During lunch, she texted Nathan, "How's it going? Asia-Pacific call survived?" His response came quickly. "Barely. Said something about synergistic market alignment when I panicked. They seemed impressed. Your team is covering for me admirably. How are the future poets of America? Currently learning about symbolism in Gatsby. No major crises yet. Your department thinks I'm coping suspiciously well. Don't get too comfortable. You haven't faced the parent emails yet." Sithiti. That cryptic warning became clear during her planning period when Audrey opened Nathan's school email account. 23 new messages had arrived since yesterday, most from parents with concerns ranging from legitimate academic questions to outlandish demands for grade reconsideration. One particularly aggressive email from a parent named Karen Thornton insisted that her son's C- essay deserved at least a B+ because he's applying to Princeton and can't afford any blemishes on his transcript. Audrey studied the attached essay, which Nathan had already graded with detailed comments. The paper was mediocre at best, with poor structure and superficial analysis. Drawing on her corporate experience with difficult clients, Audrey crafted a polite but firm response, explaining the grading criteria and suggesting specific ways the student could improve on the next assignment. She offered additional office hours for support, but made it clear that the grade would stand. "Welcome to the parent relations aspect of teaching," Dennis said, when she mentioned the emails during their shared planning period. "Nathan's actually one of our most diplomatic faculty members in that department. Some parents specifically request his classes because he gives detailed feedback without sugarcoating. He's always been straightforward but kind," Audrey agreed, finding herself sharing details about their relationship more freely than she normally would with colleagues. "It's one of the things that attracted me to him in graduate school. He never told me what I wanted to hear. He told me what I needed to hear." Dennis nodded thoughtfully. "That quality makes a good teacher. And a good partner." He hesitated before adding, "Nathan speaks very highly of you, you know. Always has. The department teases him sometimes because he finds ways to mention your accomplishments in almost every faculty meeting." This revelation warmed Audrey unexpectedly. "He doesn't brag about me at home," she admitted. "Maybe he thinks you already know how proud he is," Dennis suggested. The afternoon classes flew by in a blur of literature discussions, writing exercises, and the constant energy management that teaching required. By the final bell, Audrey was mentally exhausted, but in a strangely satisfying way. There was something immediately tangible about teaching that her corporate work often lacked. visible moments of understanding dawning on students' faces, real-time feedback through their engagement or confusion. As she was packing up her materials, a hesitant knock sounded at the classroom door. The creative writing student with intense eyes, Eliza, stood in the doorway. "Mrs. Fletcher, do you have a minute?" the girl asked. "Of course," Audrey replied, setting down the essays she'd been organizing. "What can I help you with?" Eliza approached cautiously, clutching a folder to her chest. "Mr. Fletcher mentioned you work in the corporate world. With technology and stuff?" "That's right. I'm a product development executive." "And you write things? For your job?" Audrey smiled, beginning to understand the purpose of this visit. "I write constantly. Proposals, presentations, marketing materials, strategic plans, emails, business communication is primarily written." The tension in Eliza's shoulders eased slightly. "My parents think creative writing is a waste of time. They want me to study business or computer science, something practical." "Eek," she made air quotes around the last word. "I see," Audrey said carefully. "And you're wondering if there's a middle ground?" Eliza nodded, hope flickering in her expression. "May I?" Audrey gestured to the folder the girl was clutching. Eliza handed it over, and Audrey opened it to find several short stories and poems, the same impressive work she'd been grading the night before. "Writing is one of the most valuable skills in the business world," Audrey said after a moment. "The ability to communicate clearly, persuasively, and with emotional intelligence is rare and incredibly valuable. The creative thinking that goes into crafting a story, understanding character motivation, creating narrative flow, building to a satisfying conclusion, those same skills apply to product design, marketing campaigns, and leadership." She handed the folder back. "Some of the highest-paid people at my company are essentially storytellers. They create narratives around our products that connect with customers emotionally. So I don't have to choose between being creative and making a living?" Eliza asked, hope transforming her serious face. "Absolutely not. In fact, the business world desperately needs more creative thinkers." Audrey hesitated, then added, "Would it help if I spoke with your parents? Perhaps at the parent-teacher conference next month?" Eliza's eyes widened. "Would you? That would be amazing." After the girl left, Audrey sat at Nathan's desk, reflecting on the interaction. Had she just made a commitment that extended beyond their one-week experiment? And why had it felt so natural to offer her perspective, to try to make a difference in this student's life? Her phone rang. Nathan calling from the car. "I'm heading to pick up Lucas from baseball practice," he said when she answered. "Just wanted to check if you needed anything while I'm out." "Dinner's already prepped in the slow cooker." "I think I'm good," Audrey replied, still distracted by her conversation with Eliza. "Hey, Nathan, do your students often come to you with life concerns like this, beyond academics?" "All the time," he answered without hesitation. "That's half the job, really." "Why do you ask?" "I just had a student ask for advice about balancing creativity with practical career choices. I found myself really wanting to help her." Nathan's laugh was warm through the phone. "Welcome to the addictive part of teaching, making a difference in someone's life trajectory. It's what keeps us coming back, despite the grading and the parent emails." "I promised to talk to her parents about creative careers in business," Audrey admitted. "Even though our experiment will be over by then." "You're always welcome to join my parent conferences," Nathan said, his tone softening. "I'd love that, actually." That evening at home, their role reversal continued smoothly. Nathan had indeed prepared dinner in the slow cooker before leaving for work, a skill Audrey hadn't known he possessed. While Maya worked on her history presentation and Lucas practiced his baseball swing in the backyard, Audrey and Nathan once again spread their work across the kitchen table. "Warren pulled me into his office today," Nathan said as he reviewed spreadsheets on Audrey's laptop. "I thought I was in trouble, but he actually wanted my opinion on the Chicago expansion." Audrey's head snapped up from the essay she was grading. "What did you say?" "I told him I needed to review the market analysis more thoroughly before giving an informed opinion," Nathan replied. meeting her gaze steadily. Very corporate, right? But then he started talking about what a great opportunity it would be for your career, how you'd be the youngest female VP in company history. He's not wrong, Audrey said quietly. No, he's not. Nathan closed the laptop. But he also mentioned something interesting. The position could potentially be structured as a hybrid role, sometime in Chicago, some remote work from here. Not ideal, but not complete relocation either. Audrey set down her pen. He never mentioned that to me. Maybe he assumed you wouldn't be interested in anything but the traditional arrangement. Nathan ran a hand through his hair, a gesture Audrey recognized as indicating internal conflict. Or maybe he's just floating alternatives because he sensed my hesitation. What do you think about a hybrid arrangement? Audrey asked carefully. Hypothetically? Nathan considered this. Hypothetically, it would depend on the specifics. How much travel, how predictable the schedule would be, how it would impact the kids. He met her eyes directly. But I wouldn't dismiss it outright. Your career matters, Audrey. It matters to you, which means it matters to us. The conversation shifted to other topics as the children rejoined them, but Audrey found herself returning to Nathan's words throughout the evening. Your career matters to us. How had she lost sight of that fundamental understanding in their relationship? Wednesday morning brought an unexpected challenge. Lucas woke with a sore throat and slight fever. Nothing serious, but enough that he needed to stay home from school. This threw their carefully balanced role reversal arrangement into chaos. I can call in sick, Nathan offered, as they stood in the hallway outside Lucas's room, speaking in hushed tones. They'll understand. No, Audrey said after a moment's consideration. I'll stay home with him. That's what you would do, right? Nathan nodded slowly. Usually, yes. My schedule is more flexible for these situations. Then that's what I'll do. I'll email Dennis and ask him to get a substitute for your classes today. Are you sure you have the sophomore essay review today? I'll send detailed notes for the substitute, Audrey assured him. This is part of the experiment too, right? Handling the unexpected curveballs of family life. Nathan studied her face, then smiled. Right. He kissed her forehead. Call me if his fever gets worse. There's children's acetaminophen in the bathroom cabinet, and he likes popsicles when his throat hurts. After Nathan and Maya left for school, Audrey settled into a day she hadn't anticipated. She emailed Dennis with lesson plans and called Nathan's doctor to describe Lucas's symptoms, receiving reassurance that it was likely just a minor virus requiring rest and fluids. Lucas, though clearly under the weather, was delighted to have his mother's undivided attention. They watched a movie together, played board games when he felt up to it, and Audrey even read aloud from his current chapter book, something she realized with a pang that she hadn't done since he was much younger. Dad usually makes chicken soup when I'm sick, Lucas mentioned casually in the afternoon. Does he now? Audrey replied, mentally cataloging the contents of their refrigerator. I think I can manage that. Following a recipe she found online, Audrey prepared a simple chicken soup. The process was surprisingly therapeutic. Chopping vegetables, watching the broth simmer, the kitchen filling with comforting aromas. When Lucas took his first spoonful and declared it almost as good as Dad's, she felt a disproportionate sense of accomplishment. Throughout the day, she found herself checking her work email less frequently than she would have expected, genuinely engaged in caring for her son. The world of quarterly projections and client demands seemed distant, less urgent than ensuring Lucas stayed hydrated and comfortable. Nathan called during his lunch break, concern evident in his voice. How is he? Temperature down? 99.2. Last check, Audrey reported. We're watching The Sandlot, and I made soup. You made soup? Nathan sounded genuinely surprised. Don't sound so shocked. I'm embracing the full stay-at-home parent experience. I'm not shocked. I'm impressed, and maybe a little jealous that I'm stuck in a budget review while you're watching baseball movies. Audrey laughed. Believe me, there's plenty of snot and whining to go around. I wouldn't exactly call it a vacation day. Still, Nathan said softly, thank you for handling this, for fully committing to our experiment. It's actually been nice, Audrey admitted. I've had more one-on-one time with Lucas today than I have in months. After they hung up, Audrey reflected on this unexpected turn in their role reversal week. Caring for a sick child wasn't glamorous or intellectually stimulating, but it held a different kind of satisfaction. Meeting immediate, tangible needs, providing comfort, simply through presence. By the time Nathan and Maya returned home that afternoon, Lucas was feeling better, his fever gone and appetite returning. Nathan checked on him immediately, then found Audrey in the kitchen cleaning up the soup pot. Successful day of home nursing? He asked, loosening his tie. I think so. His fever broke around 2 o'clock, and he's been more energetic since then. She nodded toward the living room where Lucas was now playing a video game. How was your day? Budget review survive your scrutiny? Barely, Nathan admitted. I had to channel my inner Audrey Fletcher several times. Peterson tried to inflate his department's numbers again. He always does, Audrey said with a smile. Did Jasmine catch it? Immediately. That woman is terrifying in her efficiency. Nathan leaned against the counter. I missed 3 calls from Warren about the Chicago position. I wasn't sure how to handle those, so I had Mark schedule a meeting for Friday. Audrey raised her eyebrows. That gives us a deadline, doesn't it? We'll need to make some decisions by then. We will, Nathan agreed. But not tonight. Tonight, I'm just grateful Lucas is feeling better, and that you were here for him. He hesitated, then added, it meant a lot to him, having you home when he was sick. The simple observation carried weight. How many times had Lucas been ill with only Nathan to comfort him? How many small moments of connection had Audrey missed while pursuing her career ambitions? The question lingered as they moved through their evening routine. Maya needed help preparing for a history test, which Audrey provided while Nathan made dinner. Lucas, still recuperating, was allowed to eat in the living room while watching a nature documentary, a special privilege for sick days. After the children were in bed, Audrey and Nathan retreated to their bedroom earlier than usual, both mentally drained from the day's challenges. As they prepared for sleep, Audrey found herself studying Nathan's face, the fine lines around his eyes, the small scar on his chin from a childhood accident, features so familiar, yet somehow newly significant. I think I'm starting to understand, she said quietly as they settled beneath the covers. Understand what? Nathan asked, turning toward her. Why, you've never complained about taking on so much with the house, the kids. She traced a finger along his jawline. It's not just tasks to complete. It's connections, moments, being there when Lucas is sick, or when Maya needs help with her presentation. Those aren't burdens, they're privileges. Nathan caught her hand, pressing a kiss to her palm. They are. But so is what you do. Building something, leading people, creating products that matter. That's not just ambition, it's purpose. When did we start seeing our roles as opposing forces rather than complementary parts of a whole? Audrey wondered aloud. I don't know, Nathan admitted. Gradually, I think. But this experiment is helping me see things differently. Me too, Audrey whispered, curling into his embrace. Me too. Thursday brought new challenges as both Audrey and Nathan returned to their temporary roles, now past the halfway point of their experiment. Lucas was well enough for school, and the household resumed its normal rhythm. In the classroom, Audrey faced the senior thesis draft reviews Dennis had warned her about, a marathon of individual conferences with 12th grade students about their literary analysis projects. The process was intellectually demanding but rewarding, reminiscent of the mentoring she did with junior team members at work. During lunch, she received a text from Nathan. Warren cornered me about Chicago again. Says they need an answer by next week. Conference room debates getting heated about whether hybrid role could work. Some key team members would need to relocate regardless. Audrey stared at the message, the reality of the decision they faced suddenly concrete. Next week, Immediately after their experiment concluded, they would need to make a choice that would alter the course of their family's future. She was still contemplating this when her phone rang. Not Nathan this time, but Warren himself. "Audrey," he began without preamble when she answered. "Your husband is surprisingly adept at corporate diplomacy, but I need to speak with you directly about Chicago." "I'm in the middle of student conferences, Warren," she replied, checking the time before her next appointment. "Can this wait until tonight?" "Frankly, no. The board is pushing for an answer, and I need to know your interest level. The hybrid arrangement we've been discussing is unprecedented. We're creating it specifically for you because we value your contributions that much, but it's not without complications." Audrey stepped into an empty classroom, closing the door for privacy. "What kinds of complications?" "You'd still need to be in Chicago at least 2 weeks each month. Your core team would relocate completely. And there's no guarantee the arrangement would be permanent. It might be a transitional phase before full relocation." The picture Warren painted was far from the clean solution Nathan had implied. "I appreciate your candor," Audrey said carefully. "Nathan and I are still discussing the possibilities. I'll have an answer for you by Monday." "Monday?" Warren repeated, clearly not thrilled with the timeline. "The board meets Tuesday morning. Don't wait too long, Audrey. Opportunities like this don't come around often, especially for women in this industry." After hanging up, Audrey leaned against the wall, closing her eyes briefly. Warren wasn't wrong. This was a rare opportunity, potentially career-defining. The old Audrey, the one who existed before this experiment, would have accepted immediately, assuming Nathan and the children would adapt around her ambitions as they always had. But now, having walked in Nathan's shoes, having experienced firsthand the daily rhythm of their family's life from his perspective, the decision felt infinitely more complex. The hybrid role might be feasible, but it would still fundamentally alter their family dynamic. Nathan would shoulder even more responsibility when she was in Chicago. The children would feel her absence more acutely, now that she understood what presence truly meant. As she returned to the senior thesis conferences, Audrey found herself observing the school environment with new eyes. The bulletin boards showcasing student achievements, the easy camaraderie among faculty, the palpable sense of community, all elements of Nathan's professional world that he would sacrifice if they relocated for her career. That evening, as they prepared dinner together, a task they had begun sharing naturally as the week progressed, Audrey broached the subject. "Warren called me directly about Chicago," she said, chopping vegetables while Nathan seasoned chicken. The hybrid role would still mean significant time away. At least 2 weeks each month in Chicago, maybe more. Nathan's hands stilled momentarily. "I see." He resumed his task, his voice measured. "That's still better than full relocation, isn't it?" "Is it?" Audrey set down her knife. "Nathan, be honest with me. How would you really feel about that arrangement? About essentially being a single parent half the time? About possibly having to leave your school, your department, everything you've built here?" Nathan was quiet for a long moment, organizing his thoughts. "If you're asking whether I'd resent you for accepting the promotion, the answer is no. We've always supported each other's careers." "That's not what I'm asking," Audrey pressed. "I'm asking what you want, not what you'd be willing to tolerate for my sake." Their eyes met across the kitchen island, an unfamiliar tension stretching between them. Finally, Nathan spoke. "What I want is for you to be fulfilled professionally. But I also want our family to remain connected, present in each other's daily lives. I want Maya to have her mother's guidance through these critical teenage years. I want Lucas to know you're there for his games and his sick days. I want us to continue building the life we've created here." He set down the seasoning. "And yes, selfishly, I want to continue teaching at a school I love, working with colleagues I respect, in a community where we've put down roots. But I would give that up if Chicago was what you truly needed to be happy." The raw honesty in his words left Audrey momentarily speechless. In their 14 years together, They had discussed career moves and family decisions many times, but always with a layer of practicality that somehow muted the emotional truth beneath. "What if neither option is perfect?" she asked finally. "What if there's no clean solution where everyone gets what they want?" "Then we prioritize," Nathan said simply. "We decide together what matters most for our family at this moment in our lives." The conversation paused as Maya entered the kitchen, asking for help with a history citation format. The parental duties resumed, the difficult decision temporarily set aside. But as the evening progressed, Audrey found herself studying their home with new awareness. The photos lining the walls, the comfortable furniture bearing witness to years of family life, the essence of stability and belonging they had created together. After the children were asleep, Audrey found Nathan in their home office, reviewing presentation materials for the next day. She sat beside him on the small sofa, their shoulders touching. "Tomorrow's the last day of our experiment," she said softly. "Has it only been 4 days?" Nathan mused. "It feels longer. In a good way or a bad way?" He smiled, setting aside his work. "Both. I have newfound respect for what you manage every day at work. The constant pressure, the politics, the mental agility required to shift between different problems and personalities. And I've realized how much invisible labor you do here," Audrey acknowledged. "Not just tasks, but emotional management, planning, anticipating everyone's needs. It's humbling." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the weight of their impending decision hovering unspoken between them. "Whatever we decide about Chicago," Nathan said finally, "I think this experiment has changed us, changed how we see each other's contributions." Audrey nodded, leaning her head against his shoulder. "One more day to go. Then we decide." "Then we decide," Nathan echoed, his arm coming around her shoulders, pulling her closer as if anchoring them both against the uncertainty that lay ahead. Friday morning arrived with a sense of significance, the final day of their role reversal experiment. Audrey woke before the alarm, watching the gentle rise and fall of Nathan's chest as he slept. The week had transformed their understanding of each other's worlds in ways neither had anticipated. Today would bring their experiment to its conclusion, forcing them to confront the Chicago decision with their new perspectives. In the soft dawn light filtering through the curtains, Audrey reflected on the journey of the past 4 days. She had stepped into Nathan's shoes and discovered not just the challenges he faced daily, but the profound satisfaction he found in meaningful connections with students and family. He had navigated her corporate landscape, experiencing both the exhilaration of leadership and the constant pressure of high-stakes decision-making. Nathan stirred beside her, blue eyes opening to meet hers. "Good morning," he murmured, voice still rough with sleep. "Last day." "Last day," she echoed, reaching out to brush a strand of hair from his forehead. The household morning routine had evolved over the week, finding a new rhythm as they shared responsibilities more naturally than before. Audrey helped Maya with last-minute preparations for her history presentation, while Nathan made breakfast. Lucas, fully recovered from his brief illness, chattered excitedly about the weekend's baseball championship game. "Mom, you're still coming tomorrow, right?" Lucas asked, syrup dripping from his fork. "Wouldn't miss it for the world," Audrey promised, realizing she meant it with her whole heart. The quarterly projections report could wait. Her son's moment in the spotlight could not. As they prepared to part ways for their final day in each other's roles, Audrey and Nathan lingered in the driveway, an unspoken reluctance to separate. "Big day for you," Audrey said, straightening Nathan's tie, her power suit looking surprisingly natural on him after a week of wear. "The regional director presentation." "And for you," Nathan replied. "Senior literature analysis debates, right?" She nodded. "Dennis says they get quite heated. Apparently, there's an ongoing feud about symbolism in Hemingway." They shared a laugh, the sound carrying in the morning air. "Good luck today," Nathan said, his expression turning serious. "Whatever happens with the Chicago decision, this week has been valuable beyond measure." "It has," Audrey agreed, squeezing his hand before they separated to their respective vehicles. At school, the classroom felt almost like home now. Audrey arranged Nathan's materials with practiced ease, anticipating the day's challenges with confidence she hadn't possessed on Monday. When Dennis appeared in the doorway, his expression was knowing. "Last day of the great experiment," he observed. "Verdict. Still processing," Audrey admitted. "But I understand Nathan's world so much better now. The constant multitasking, the emotional labor, the meaningful connections you form with students. It's both more challenging and more rewarding than I imagined." Dennis nodded thoughtfully. "And how's Nathan holding up in corporate America?" "Surprisingly well. My team respects him. He brings a different perspective that they find refreshing." Audrey smiled, though he's terrified about today's presentation to the regional directors. "He'll do fine," Dennis said with confidence. "Nathan has always been able to connect with people, to make complex ideas accessible. That's what makes him such an effective teacher." The observation lingered with Audrey as she began her final day of teaching. The senior literature debates were indeed passionate, students arguing their interpretations with impressive articulation and occasional dramatic gestures. Audrey guided the discussions with a lighter touch than she might have used in a corporate meeting, allowing the students' enthusiasm to drive the exchange while keeping them anchored to textual evidence. During her lunch break, Audrey found herself drawn to the teacher's lounge rather than eating alone in the classroom. Over the week, she had developed genuine connections with Nathan's colleagues, understanding their inside jokes, appreciating their dedication, enjoying their unique perspectives. They had accepted her into their circle with remarkable openness. "We're going to miss you next week," said the chemistry teacher, sliding into the chair beside her. "You've been a great addition to our lunch table. Much less preachy about Oxford commas than your husband." Audrey laughed, touched by the casual inclusion. "I've enjoyed being part of your world. I understand now why Nathan finds such fulfillment here." As the final bell rang, ending her last day as a teacher, Audrey felt an unexpected twinge of sadness. She had connected with these students, invested in their growth, celebrated their insights. Would Nathan feel a similar attachment to her team members when their experiment concluded? She was gathering her belongings when a knock sounded at the classroom door. Eliza stood there, clutching a folder. "Mrs. Fletcher? I wanted to give you this before you go back to your regular job." The girl approached, holding out what appeared to be a manuscript. "It's a story I wrote, about a businesswoman who discovers that success means different things to different people. I thought maybe you could read it sometime." Audrey accepted the folder, touched by the gesture. "I would be honored to read it, Eliza. And I meant what I said about speaking with your parents about creative careers." "Mr. Fletcher says you're really important at your company," Eliza said, fidgeting slightly. "That you might be moving to Chicago for a big promotion." Audrey blinked in surprise. "He mentioned that. He seemed proud when he talked about it, but also sad." Eliza shrugged with teenage directness. "Anyway, thanks for teaching us this week. You explained Hemingway better than Mr. Fletcher. Don't tell him I said that." After Eliza left, Audrey sat at Nathan's desk, thinking about the girl's words. Nathan had spoken of her potential promotion with pride, even as he contemplated the personal cost it might entail. That complex emotion, simultaneously celebrating a partner's success while acknowledging the sacrifice it demanded, reflected the depth of their relationship in ways Audrey hadn't fully appreciated before. Her phone buzzed with a message from Nathan. "Presentation went better than expected. Warren wants to meet with both of us at 5 o'clock. Says it's time to discuss Chicago properly." Audrey stared at the message, her heart quickening. The moment of decision was approaching faster than anticipated. She texted back, "I'll be there. We'll face this together." The corporate tower gleamed in the afternoon sunlight as Audrey parked in her reserved space. After a week away, the building felt simultaneously familiar and strange, like returning to a childhood home as an adult. Security guards greeted her with friendly nods as she crossed the lobby toward the elevators. In her office, temporarily Nathan's domain, she found evidence of his presence everywhere. The desk was arranged differently, family photos repositioned prominently, notepads filled with his distinctive handwriting. He had made the space his own while respecting its essential purpose. A half-empty coffee mug sat beside her keyboard, the yellow one from home that she had never before brought to work, as if keeping her professional and personal worlds deliberately separate. Nathan arrived minutes later, looking professional but weary in her suit. "There you are," he said, relief evident in his voice. "Warren's assistant just called. They're ready for us in the conference room." "How are you feeling?" Audrey asked, studying his face. Honest answer? Conflicted. Nathan ran a hand through his hair. "The presentation went remarkably well. The team supported me. The directors asked thoughtful questions, and in that moment, I could see how exhilarating your work can be. The ideas, the innovation, the potential impact, it's meaningful in a different way than teaching, but meaningful nonetheless." "But," Audrey prompted, sensing his reservation, "but I also missed the classroom, missed the direct connection with students, the immediacy of seeing understanding dawn in someone's eyes." Nathan moved closer, taking her hands in his. "I respect what you do here, Audrey, more than ever. And I understand now why it fulfills you, why it matters." A knock at the door interrupted them, Warren's assistant indicating they were expected in the conference room. Together, they walked down the hallway, shoulders occasionally brushing, united despite the uncertainty ahead. Warren waited alone in the large conference room, sitting at the head of the polished table with several folders arranged before him. He rose as they entered, his normally stern expression softening slightly. "Audrey, Nathan," he greeted them. "Quite the experiment you two have conducted this week. Unorthodox, but I must admit, intriguing in its results." They took seats across from him, hands automatically finding each other under the table. "Before we discuss Chicago specifically," Warren continued, "I want to share some observations. Nathan, your performance this week has been surprisingly effective. You brought a fresh perspective to our meetings, particularly in how you articulated product benefits in terms of human impact rather than just metrics. The regional directors specifically mentioned your communication style as refreshingly accessible." Nathan nodded, accepting the unexpected praise with grace. "Thank you. It was a steep learning curve, but Audrey prepared me well." Warren turned to Audrey. "And I understand from Dennis Whitman that you've made quite an impression at the high school. He called me this afternoon. Apparently, you two have known each other since college?" "Graduate school," Audrey confirmed, surprised by this connection. "Dennis and I were in the same literature program before I switched to business." "Well, he was effusive in his praise. Said several students have already asked if you could guest lecture occasionally." Warren smiled slightly. "It seems you both have talents that translate across your respective worlds." He opened one of the folders, extracting a document that he slid across the table to them. "Which brings us to Chicago. The board has authorized me to make you an official offer, Audrey. Vice President of Product Development, significant salary increase, relocation package, the works." Audrey glanced at the document without reaching for it. "And the hybrid arrangement we discussed? That's where things get complicated," Warren admitted. "The board is willing to consider a transitional period, 6 months where you split time between locations, but ultimately, they expect the VP of Product Development to be physically present in Chicago at least 80% of the time." Nathan's hand tightened around hers beneath the table. "I see," Audrey said, her voice steady despite the internal conflict raging within her. "And if that arrangement doesn't work for my family?" Warren leaned back, studying them both. "Then we'd reluctantly need to offer the position to someone else. But before you make any decisions, there's something else to consider." He extracted another document from a different folder. Nathan's presentation today sparked an interesting conversation among the directors. They were particularly impressed by how he translated our technical capabilities into educational applications. Nathan looked puzzled. "I was just drawing on my teaching background." "Precisely," Warren nodded, "which led us to consider a position we hadn't previously defined." He slid the second document toward them. "Educational Market Development Director. a new role focused on expanding our enterprise software into educational institutions, a market we've largely ignored until now. Audrey stared at the document, then at Warren. "You're offering Nathan a position?" "I'm floating the possibility," Warren clarified. "It would be based here, not Chicago, leveraging Nathan's educational expertise and the communication skills he demonstrated this week. The educational market represents significant growth potential for us, but we've lacked someone who truly understands both worlds." Nathan looked stunned. "I'm a literature teacher. I don't have formal business training." "Neither did Audrey when she started," Warren pointed out. "She was a literature major who took a few business courses and demonstrated exceptional aptitude. Sometimes the most innovative thinking comes from outside traditional pathways." He closed his folders decisively. "Consider both options. Discuss what would work best for your family. I need your decision by Monday morning." After Warren left them alone in the conference room, Audrey and Nathan sat in silence, the two documents lying before them like diverging paths. "This is unexpected," Nathan finally said. "It is," Audrey agreed. "How do you feel about it?" Nathan considered the question carefully. "Intrigued, intimidated, uncertain if I'm qualified, but also excited by the possibility." He looked at her directly. "What about you? Chicago has been your goal for so long." Audrey gazed through the conference room windows at the city skyline, the ambition that had driven her career still present, but somehow transformed by the week's experiences. "Chicago would advance my career significantly, but at what cost to our family? To your career? To the connections we've built here?" She turned back to him. "This experiment has shown me that success isn't just about professional advancement. It's about balance, about honoring all the parts of our lives that matter." They gathered the documents and left the conference room. The decision still unmade, but the parameters fundamentally altered. As they rode the elevator down to the parking garage, Nathan broke the contemplative silence. "Remember when we were graduate students?" he asked. "You were studying Victorian literature. I was focused on American modernism. We both thought we'd be professors someday." Audrey smiled at the memory. "Life had other plans." "It did," Nathan agreed. "But we adjusted our course together. Maybe this is another adjustment point." At home, they found Maya and Lucas waiting eagerly for their return, curious about the final day of the experiment and what would happen next. "Are you going back to your regular jobs on Monday?" Lucas asked over dinner. Audrey and Nathan exchanged glances. "Yes," Audrey confirmed, "but we've learned a lot from walking in each other's shoes." "Phew. Like what?" Maya asked, more engaged than her usual teenage detachment would allow. "Like how challenging your father's job is," Audrey answered honestly. "The constant attention required, the emotional investment, the skill in managing so many different personalities and needs simultaneously. And how much responsibility your mother carries at work," Nathan added. "The pressure of making decisions that affect so many people, the strategic thinking required to navigate complex problems." After dinner, with the children occupied with their own activities, Audrey and Nathan retreated to the back porch with cups of tea. The evening air was cool but not unpleasant, stars beginning to emerge in the darkening sky. "We need to decide," Nathan said quietly. "We do," Audrey agreed. "But I think the question has changed from when we started this experiment." "How so?" "A week ago, the question was whether I should take the Chicago position, and how you and the kids would adapt around that decision." Audrey wrapped her hands around the warm mug. "Now, it's about what arrangement would best serve our family as a whole, honoring everyone's needs and aspirations." Nathan considered this. "Warren's offer to me is unexpected. I'm not sure I'm ready for such a dramatic career change." "Aren't you?" Audrey challenged gently. "You've been talking about wanting a new challenge for over a year. You've mentioned that while you love teaching, you sometimes feel you could have broader impact." "That's true," Nathan admitted. "But business is your world, not mine." "It wasn't my world originally either," Audrey reminded him. "I evolved into it because I discovered talents I hadn't fully recognized before. She set her mug down, turning to face him fully. You were amazing this week, Nathan. The team respected you. Warren wouldn't have made the offer if he didn't see genuine potential. And what about you? Chicago has been your target for years. Audrey looked out across their backyard, where Lucas's baseball gear lay scattered near the fence. Maya's art project was visible through the kitchen window, spread across the table she'd helped clear after dinner. This home, this life they'd built together, suddenly seemed more valuable than any corporate advancement. What if success isn't always a straight line upward, she mused. What if sometimes it's about depth rather than height? About strengthening foundations rather than just building taller? They sat in companionable silence as darkness fell completely, the weight of their impending decision hovering between them, no longer threatening but thoughtful. Saturday morning dawned bright and clear. Perfect weather for Lucas's championship baseball game. Audrey woke early, her mind surprisingly calm despite the unresolved Chicago question. Sometime during the night, clarity had begun to emerge, pieces falling into place like a puzzle finally revealing its image. The baseball field was crowded with families when they arrived, bleachers filling quickly with enthusiastic supporters. Lucas's team, in their navy and white uniforms, huddled with their coach for last-minute strategy. Maya, surprisingly supportive of her brother for once, had even painted her face with the team colors. Nervous? Nathan asked, as they claimed seats in the bleachers. About the game, or about our decision? Audrey replied with a small smile. Both, I suppose. Strangely, no. Not anymore. Audrey watched as Lucas took his position, his small figure suddenly seeming so capable, so grounded. I think I know what we should do. The game began, families cheering enthusiastically for every hit, every catch, every run. Lucas played with focused determination, contributing 2 solid hits and a spectacular catch that had Nathan and Audrey on their feet, shouting encouragement. When the final inning concluded with Lucas's team victorious by 2 runs, the celebration was immediate and joyful. Lucas ran to them, sweaty and beaming with pride. Did you see? Did you see my catch, Mom? I saw, Audrey confirmed, hugging him tightly despite his dust-covered uniform. It was amazing, buddy. I'm so proud of you. As the team gathered for photos and trophy presentations, Audrey turned to Nathan. I'm declining the Chicago position, she said with quiet certainty. Nathan's eyebrows rose in surprise. Audrey, are you sure? We could make the hybrid arrangement work for the transitional period, see how it goes. She shook her head. I don't want to be half present in Chicago and half present here. This week taught me that presence matters. Really being here, engaged in the lives we're building together. She took his hand, squeezing it gently. There will be other opportunities for advancement. But these years with the children, with you, we don't get those back. What about Warren's offer to me? Nathan asked carefully. That's entirely your decision, Audrey replied. If it excites you, I support you exploring it. If you prefer teaching, I support that too. Either way, we remain rooted here, together. Nathan studied her face, searching for any sign of reluctance or resentment. Finding none, he smiled. You know what this week showed me? That you're extraordinary no matter what role you're in. Whether leading a corporate team, or connecting with students, or caring for our children when they're sick, you bring your full self to each challenge. The award ceremony concluded, Lucas running back to them with his trophy held high, Maya close behind capturing photos on her phone. They celebrated with ice cream, the family complete and connected in a way that felt both familiar and somehow new. Sunday passed in comfortable domesticity, a family brunch, yard work tackled together, a movie night with popcorn and good-natured arguments about what to watch. The Chicago documents sat on the desk in the home office, no longer radiating pressure but simply waiting for the formal decision. Monday morning arrived with a return to their normal roles. Audrey donned her professional attire, the familiar weight of her responsibilities settling back onto her shoulders. But differently now. Nathan dressed in his teacher's uniform of button-down shirt and khakis, glasses perched on his nose, satchel filled with graded papers. They met in the kitchen after getting the children off to school, coffee cups in hand, standing in the sunlight streaming through the windows. "Ready for your meeting with Warren?" Nathan asked. "Ready," Audrey confirmed. "And you? Back to The Great Gatsby and senior theses?" "More than ready, though I'll miss aspects of corporate life. The adrenaline of those high-stakes presentations, the collaborative problem-solving. It was exciting in its own way." Audrey considered him thoughtfully. "You know, Warren's offer doesn't have to be all or nothing. You could explore it part-time initially, perhaps summer work or consulting. Test the waters before making a full transition." Nathan's expression brightened. "That's actually a brilliant compromise. I could maintain my teaching position while developing the educational market role gradually." "Balance," Audrey said with a smile. "That's what this whole experiment has been about, hasn't it? Finding our balance." They kissed goodbye in the driveway, no longer playing roles but simply themselves. Audrey the executive, Nathan the teacher, each with deeper appreciation for the other's world. In Warren's office later that morning, Audrey delivered her decision with calm confidence. "I'm declining the Chicago position. My family is rooted here, and I've realized that my effectiveness as a leader is enhanced, not diminished, by honoring that foundation." Warren looked disappointed, but not surprised. "I suspected as much after our meeting Friday. The board will be disappointed, but they'll understand. Family considerations are valid factors in career decisions. However," Audrey continued, "I am interested in discussing how we might develop the educational market opportunity you mentioned. Nathan is intrigued by the possibility, but would prefer to explore it incrementally while maintaining his teaching position." Warren's expression shifted to interest. "A hybrid arrangement for him, then? Ironic, given our discussions about your role." "Sometimes the right solution depends on whose life we're trying to balance," Audrey observed with a smile. The weeks that followed brought adjustment as they settled back into their regular roles, but with subtle, significant differences. Audrey found herself more present when at home, fully engaged rather than mentally reviewing work projects. She established firmer boundaries around family time, declining non-essential evening meetings and protecting weekends for Lucas's games and Maya's activities. Nathan began consulting with Audrey's company 2 afternoons a week after school, bringing his educational expertise to their product development team. His perspective proved valuable, opening doors to markets they had previously overlooked. The arrangement allowed him to explore this new direction while maintaining the teaching career he loved. Most importantly, they continued the conversation their experiment had started, talking openly about their professional aspirations, family needs, and how to balance both. They instituted a monthly role reversal dinner, where they updated each other on their respective worlds, ensuring neither would again lose sight of the other's daily realities. 3 months after their experiment, Audrey received another promotion. Not the Chicago position, but a newly created role as Chief Innovation Officer, allowing her to lead strategic initiatives while remaining based at the local office. The board, impressed by her commitment to both professional excellence and personal values, created the position specifically to retain her talents. On the evening she shared this news with Nathan, they sat on their back porch, as they had the night they made their decision about Chicago. Spring had arrived, the garden coming alive with new growth, mirroring the renewal in their relationship. "They created a position for you," Nathan said, pride evident in his voice. "That speaks volumes about how they value your contributions." Just as the school created a flexible schedule to accommodate your consulting work, Audrey pointed out, when people truly value what you offer, they find ways to make things work. Nathan raised his glass in a toast. "To our crazy experiment. Who would have thought that walking in each other's shoes for a week could change so much?" "I knew," Audrey claimed with a laugh. Okay, I didn't know exactly how it would unfold, but I knew we needed to see each other's worlds more clearly. As twilight deepened around them, Audrey reflected on the journey they'd taken together. The experiment had begun as a way to understand each other's daily challenges, but it had revealed something far more profound: that success meant different things in different seasons of life, that balance wasn't a fixed formula, but an ongoing conversation, and that sometimes the most important career decision was choosing the path that honored all dimensions of a fulfilling life. Maya called from inside the house, asking for help with her college research project. Lucas needed a signature on a permission slip for a field trip. The ordinary demands of family life continued, no longer competing with career ambitions, but integrated into a more holistic vision of success. "We should go in," Nathan said, standing and offering Audrey his hand. "Yes," she agreed, rising to join him. "They're waiting for us." See? Together, they walked back into their home, no longer divided by invisible boundaries between provider and caretaker, professional and parent, but united in the shared understanding that the most meaningful achievements couldn't be measured by titles or salaries alone, but by the lives they touched, the family they nurtured, and the partnership they continued to build, one day at a time. The 7-day role reversal had ended, but its impact would continue to shape their choices, their conversations, and their definition of success for years to come. A lasting testament to the power of truly seeing life through another's eyes. If you enjoyed the story, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And drop a comment below. What city are you watching from? And if your heart tells you to, feel free to leave me a tip on Buy Me a Coffee. Just check the first pinned comment. Thanks for keeping me company and for the coffee, and I'll see you in the next story.